Without any rings of power to watch and laugh at, what is there? Because I'm not watching Agatha all along. I'm not doing it and you can't make me.
It's been described to me that Agatha is the gayest project Marvel has ever done.
No thanks, and I'm also shocked at celebrities' increasing inability to act like humans. So clearly from the title of this, I just watched the horror movie Terrifier. I just watched a lot of characters getting horribly mutilated, but I have my limits, and that's frankly preferable to watching Agatha. Overall, my takeaway from Terrifier is that I was surprised by how much I liked it. It's a bit of a throwback to slasher horror films from the 80s, but in some ways is also a little inventive. It gets away with levels of violence that go far beyond what many 80s movies got banned for, while breaking away from some of the cliches of the genre. But I'll have to save that for the spoilers. And lady, seriously, please don't eyeball the murder clown. What are you thinking? Have you seen that thing? Stop staring at it! The girls in this film make a series of the worst decisions imaginable. The acting is shaky in places, the plot's a bit wonky, but it has a little magic, and is an admirable effort for a movie with a tiny budget. I looked at new releases to find something to review, and I realised while browsing for new things that Hollywood seems to be completely out of ideas. I concluded this at the moment I found out that Hollywood had remade Matlock. Matlock! Matlock! Who the hell remembers Matlock? Ben Matlock was a lawyer played by Andy Griffith from 1986 to 1995. Now they've rebooted Matlock with a gender-swapped Matlock played by Kathy Bates from the film Misery, who's now called Madeline Matlock. Nothing is safe at this point. I learned this from the Equalizer reboot, or should I say reboots, where the character Robert McCall went from being a white English guy in the 1980s series to the modern series where Robert became Robin and was now being played by Queen Latifah. They remade Ironside, they remade Magnum PI, they remade Perry Mason, and I'm sick of it. I wanted something new. So because of the release of the movie Terrifier 3 and because it's the spooky time of the year, I ended up watching Terrifier 1 because I've not watched any of the series before and I didn't want to just jump in at 3 and be confused at what I was sure would be an intricate story about a murder clown. And frankly, I was somewhat shocked at what I found because from the box art, I was not expecting much. The plot to Terrifier is pretty simple, being described on IMDb as: on Halloween, a maniac named Art the Clown terrorises two friends and everyone else who gets in his way. And yeah, that pretty much covers it. And Art the Clown was kind of compelling to me as a horror antagonist, and he is really kind of nasty. He's almost as persistent and durable as Jason from Friday the 13th, but seems to take great enjoyment in hurting people like Freddy Krueger from Nightmare on Elm Street, with maybe a pinch of Pennywise from It. The whole film feels like a throwback to low-budget 80s slasher horror movies, like Friday the 13th or The Mutilator or Pieces. So there's gore, lots of blood, several scenes are a bit on the nasty side and frankly not for the faint-hearted. The concept seems to have been thought up as a showcase for the director's ability to create good practical effects, and despite having so little to work with by Hollywood standards in terms of money, the movie had a reported budget in the region of just $40,000, and they really stretched that budget. They just seem to use real places for the sets most of the time, which saves money. The practical effects to me look good, and very welcome in an age dominated by CGI that frequently looks a lot less real than this. It's far from perfect as a film, it has some story problems, but I'm genuinely impressed by what they produce for the money, because this film is rated higher than Madam Web is on IMDb, and I think it's a better movie. The difference is that this movie cost $40,000 and Madam Web cost a reported $80 million. Madam Web cost 2,000 times what this movie cost, and Terrifier made a reported $420,000 at the box office, which should make it a commercial success. All three films in the series appear to have been commercial successes as well. The second one had a reported budget of $250,000 and brought in a reported $16 million. And seriously, this film for me puts the big Hollywood studios to shame, because some of them are lurching from commercial failure to commercial failure. Warner Brothers lost a reported $100 million on Blue Beetle alone. How can you have the rights to Superman and still not make money? Then this guy comes along with not much experience but a lot of passion, a love for practical effects and seemingly 80s horror, and he makes money where they can't by doing something truly innovative and shocking, making a movie that people may actually want to watch. So should you watch Terrifier? Not if you don't like slasher movies or gore, and I would strongly advise against watching it with children around. So should you watch Terrifier? I'm going to say the thing I always say. It depends on you and what you like. I don't think my experience with the film will be universal because I'm an old hand with this kind of movie. I grew up watching a lot of movies like this and I maybe have ice in my veins and no heart left. So there were quite a few moments in there that may shock, disgust or scare people, but for me it was less scary than one of my average dreams, or watching the news. But there were strange and surprising moments in there that made me laugh of all things. Lots of people get done in the film in pretty horrible ways, and then by the next scene, Art the Clown will come on riding a tiny bicycle, and I found myself laughing nervously quite a lot. It juxtaposes quirky, silly moments against the extreme violence, and somehow, somewhere it works. People could say about the movie, well, the acting isn't very good. And I kind of agree in places. But I repeat, the director had $40,000 to work with. He isn't going to be getting Robert Downey Jr., is he? Maybe you could say that the movie was made with no HR department, it has no filter, and agreed. That's one of the things I like about it. As I wrote this review, I thought back, and lots of men and women get horribly mangled in the film, but a lot of the more shocking scenes involved violence against women, and I just knew that if I looked on Google, I would find people calling this film misogynistic. The director of the films has been publicly confronted with this accusation, and I was not impressed by what he had to say. He is quoted as saying,
"I don't think it's a funny matter, but it's so not me that I do find it kind of hilarious. It's also a trope that I grew up loving. The final girl is such a powerful element to these movies, and I don't think it's as impactful if it's a final man. Men are just more reprehensible in general, and you're already used to seeing them die."
And what was that response? I can't be misogynistic. I hate men. But there's a sad truth to what he's saying. Going right back to the film Psycho, people are mostly more shocked by violence directed at women than men. Women are seen as innocent and men as sinister. If a woman is undressing by a window and a man happens to look in, he's a peeping Tom. If a man is undressing by a window and a woman happens to look in, he's a flasher. People are worryingly okay with the idea of men being subjected to violence, to the extent that when men go to prison, people will gleefully crack jokes about them dropping the soap. Violence against women is just a more effective way to shock an audience. So from here there will be spoilers for this 8-year-old movie. The film opens up with an interview between a journalist and a facially disfigured female survivor of a horrible attack by a madman dressed as a clown. The interviewer leaves and is chatting on the phone while insulting the disfigured victim's looks when the victim attacks her and tears the journalist's face apart. The film then quite confusingly jumps to two young women who've been drinking and have just left a Halloween party. Their only way home was one of the girls' cars and they're too drunk to drive it. One of them still wants to, they just make a series of horrible decisions. And as they're debating what to do, they're stared at from across the street by what I can only describe as a murder clown. One of the girls shouts at him and the girls decide to go and get pizza so one of them can sober up enough to drive the car home. And as they're getting pizza, the murder clown comes in and sits there staring at them. And dear God, will you stop staring at the damn murder clown? Look at it. I mean, don't look at it! The manager throws the clown out. The girls leave and go back to their car to find the tyres have been slashed, so one of the girls calls her sister to get a ride home, and in the meantime, the murder clown has gone back to the pizzeria and done in all of the staff in increasingly horrible ways. While they sit and wait for a sister, one of the girls needs the toilet, and they happen to see a man come out of an abandoned building that he's fumigating in the middle of the night. So the girls decide the best idea is to ask the creepy guy, if one of them can go alone into the building with him, drunk and scantily dressed, and use the bathroom. And all of this time, I've been confused, because after the opening scene, I have no idea why everyone is so relaxed about this murder clown just standing around. Because firstly, look at him. I'd not be relaxed if I was sat in a room with that. I'd be looking for things to use as weapons and potential exits from the building. And secondly, why are they so chill when there was a recent massacre by a murder clown? But it turns out later that the opening scene was a flash forward in the story. After that opening scene, we went back to watch the massacre that the opening scene was talking about, and the film just never bothered to do anything boring, like explaining that to the audience. The clown arrives at the abandoned building, slaughters everyone in increasingly horrible ways. One of the drunk girls gets tied upside down and sawed in half lengthwise, starting at the groin while her friend watches. Nobody comes out of this film well, including the female lead, who in most slasher films would be the sole survivor of the movie. She doesn't survive this one. She keeps on hitting the clown once and then running away until the clown pulls out a pistol and does her in. Then the girl's sister turns up and I'm thinking, oh, so is she the sole survivor? And there's lots of running around the building before finally the clown runs her over with a truck and eats her face. And I don't think I can show any of that on YouTube. The cops finally arrive, the clown does himself in, before coming back to life in a basement that in this film is what they're trying to pass off as the morgue. Because yeah, $40,000 budget. And it's revealed that the sister is in fact the crazy victim from the opening scene with a horribly disfigured face. So the whole film is even darker in tone and more nihilistic than is typical for an 80s slasher film. So Terrifier. I can't say it exactly terrified me, but it was rather nasty and worth a watch if you like the genre.
If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.